Welcome to Realcast, the weekly roundup of the real asset markets. I'm joined by Dan Innes, Paul Strome and Nicole Dines. Of course, the last 7 days have seen the unfolding tragedy in Turkey and Syria with the earthquake, and our thoughts are obviously with all those affected. And we very much support friends and colleagues in the industry and the fundraising activities of a number of organisations such as Gyoda, who are really trying to make a difference there on the ground. Turning to the UK, Dan, it seemed to be, another week of economic woes.
Well, Richard, although it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, there's not so much love in the air in the economy here in the UK. Although with news came out on Friday that at least we've managed to avoid a recession. The ONS reported that the UK has so far avoided a technical recession as GDP was flat in Q4, although it did, however, fall by 0.5% in December, but that follows a 0.3% contraction recorded in the third quarter of last year. But the UK, sadly, still the worst performing G9 country since pre-pandemic. So I went to an urban ovation session with Thought Leadership Group headed by Bill Kissler, formerly of the ICSC in Europe. He held a session on customer experience entitled The Future of Retail, Place and Community, and that was with retail futurologist Ken Hughes, and you can find that on LinkedIn. Elsewhere, according to an article in Retail Gazette, Mike Ashley's Fraser Group is lining up £100 million of war chest to bid on a series of UK shopping centres in the hope that that sort of landslide in sector values is beginning to stabilise. But Fraser Group's in advanced talks to buy the Overgate Centre in Dundee in Scotland for £30 million, along with the Mall in Luton in a £70 million deal. And that was also reported in the Times. But Frasers is said to be timing its acquisitions to coincide with the hollowing out of valuations and an expected upturn. Since June 2018, almost £8 billion has been wiped off the value of UK shopping centres. And that's a drop of 67%, according to MSCI real assets. Elsewhere, the Network Rail and Transport for London, they've announced a major new partnership, suggesting that London could be set for thousands of new homes. That agreement is the first of its kind between the two organisations and is a major step forward in the delivery of new homes, workspaces, neighbourhoods for London's communities. But the two organisations are together aiming to use their estates to deliver more than 20,000 new homes over the next decade. In the world of luxury fashion, Kering Group, which of course is the owner of Gucci, Saint Laurent, Bottega Veneta, Alexander McQueen, they've reportedly acquired a new space for a major new store on Rue Saint-Honoré in Paris, close to the Place Vendôme. According to a number of sources, it's planning to open a 2,000 square metre flagship store for Gucci, which is the group's most leading label. But renovation work's already started. And according to the building permit that filed with the City of Paris, the development consists of nearly 8,000 square metres. It could be commissioned by the architectural studio Franklin Azzi. And lastly, Richard, just one thing that caught many people's eye was Google's market value had about $120 billion wiped off it after its AI search assistant Bard gave an incorrect answer to a query. But with all the chat around ChatGPX, it's something that we're all kind of following right now.
Well, it sounds as though it may be a little while before we can all be replaced by AI. Paul, what have you been watching?
Well, some interesting deals. The life science sector got another boost. British Airways' new Airways pension scheme and Singapore's sovereign wealth fund GIC have entered a joint venture with BlackRock Alternatives Real Estate and Reef Group to develop the Tribeca King's Cross scheme, a life science development taking place in London's Knowledge Quarter in the King's Cross area. So Tribeca King's Cross will comprise 5 buildings that's located next to the Regent's Canal there. And the project will provide over 77,000 square metres of laboratory space, retail, restaurants, and about 70 residential units. The first phase of development is an 8,000 square metre building known as the Apex, which is scheduled for completion in the coming autumn. And then in the hospitality sector, there's also been more news. In one of the largest hotel acquisitions in the United States since August 2021, Credit Suisse Asset Management and Trinity Investments have acquired the Diplomat Beach Resort in Hollywood, South Florida, which is a 1,000-room oceanfront convention resort hotel. It's been bought from a private real estate fund managed by Brookfield, And as well as 1,000 bedrooms, it's got 200,000 square feet of meeting and event space, and about 10 acres of seafront, 8 restaurants and bars, 2 swimming pools, and a 14,000 square foot spa and wellness centre. Credit Suisse Asset Management's global head of real estate, Rob Rackin, said that they want to capitalise on the rebound in the US convention hotel market and Florida's tourism bounce, which they say has been rapid and dramatic. And in another hotel deal, alternative asset management group Taikao Capital has acquired a 172-key 4-star hotel in the 8th arrondissement of Paris as part of its plan to rehabilitate and reposition underutilized assets. The Hotel California, located close to the city's Champs-Élysées Avenue, has been closed for over 2 years and had not been refurbished, and will now undergo an extensive renovation and commercial repositioning in order to attract business and leisure guests. Taikao is also timing the relaunch to take advantage of the 2024 Olympic Games. Frédéric Jariel, who's the company's co-head of real estate business, said they're paying particular attention to materials and energy efficiency. So sounds like a long-term hold, which is just as well as the song name of the same name says. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave.
Well, it sounds like another couple of hotels there to add to my agenda. Nicole, what have you been tracking?
I put Real Estate, the Irish property company, has launched Making Impact, which is a very interesting project. It's one of the world's first studies to measure the built environment and sort of the impact on placemaking in a city neighborhood. It's also one of the largest because it will monitor things, how things go over a 5-year period in this Wilton Park development in Dublin 2, which I are developing, which is going to be finished by the end of the year. It's sort of mixed use, lots of resi offices, F&B, and a big park, so there's a big environmental angle. And there's lots of anecdotal evidence so far that placemaking, sort of the value of curating an urban setting actually, delivers. But there's been no in-depth study. So this aims to be the first, and it says it could really provide knowledge and a real example for similar schemes around the world. And Drooms, the provider of digital platform, came out with an interesting survey of hundreds of experts in Europe. And it turns out that despite the crisis, real estate professionals in Europe are increasing their innovation budgets and on the whole are fairly positive and anticipate business growth this year. 37% expect their revenues to increase. Just above that, 37.5% expect stagnation and 25% expect a decline. No surprises on their sort of top concerns. Their top concerns are high interest rates and the threat of tenant and buyer defaults, but also inflation, high construction costs, and the shortage of skilled workers has been mentioned in the survey. Interestingly or strangely, ESG is still not being taken on board. Only 32% of companies surveyed said they're ready. They can actually comply with ESG regulations, while the majority are still at the beginning of this journey. And Dream said that they found that particularly surprising in the survey because ESG, they say, there's no doubt it would be one of the biggest topics of 2023. And on a more positive note, there's an interesting story from California. A Californian startup, which has been using rock to soak up carbon dioxide, has now teamed up with a Canadian company to what they say is mineralizing CO2 in concrete. So they've done some very positive tests. It seems that you can soak up CO2 from the air and so trap it in concrete. Well, it will stay for centuries, they say. The technology is called DAC, direct air capture. It's seen as a sort of model for fighting global change on a global scale, because concrete apparently acts like a sponge and can really soak up CO2 from the air. Limestone has a natural ability to do this, to literally pull carbon out of the air. The new technology is just speeding up this natural process, hugely speeding it up. The problem, obviously, is cost, but they are very optimistic that they will keep investing in this new technology. And obviously, we know that concrete is the most used building material in the world, and it accounts for something like 8% of global emissions. So instead of contributing to global emission, it could contribute to soaking up CO2. That would be a real game changer. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting to see that carbon initiative there. And it's something we'll obviously pick up in our Impact and ESG event this week in London, as well as, of course, the sessions that we've got at MIPIM. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for watching us, and look forward to seeing you next week for our regular roundup of the real asset markets.